Hey, welcome here, everybody. My name is Daniel Fehr-Krahn, and we're going to be running through our first workshop of six workshops. And today, this workshop is called "Building Savings and Building Wealth." And really, it's kind of an overview of all six workshops. It's a nice introduction, and we use it quite a bit for when we go into a company as the first workshop we offer, or going to someone to a lunch and learn, and as well as coming here, we kind of get an intro to what we're doing. But I've been with our campaign for about just over 10 years and about 15 years and full time for about seven of those, running an operation in Winnipeg. And I'm wondering if I don't get a bell when someone joins. The Either way, you might get a bell when someone joins if people are joining on time. But we're going to get started. Even if people come late, we don't want to make you wait for them. But my hope today, my intention, is that you feel more confident about sharing when it comes to financial literacy, or if you just want to become a client. And there's really two groups of people. People want to just hey, I want to get my finances in order, or I want to share and get someone else's finances in order. And we teach you in the same room. Very similar to maybe if you're at a car dealership, they run a, they show you, hey, we're going to teach you how to sell cars and teach you how to buy cars in the same meeting. But one second, I think I have a. Here we go. Let me share my screen and let's jump in. I don't think you came here to hear a bunch about me, but I think you came here to learn about money, or maybe learn about yourself a little bit. And let's facilitate that. There is a chat. I do see the chat. So if you have a question, you put it in the chat. I will see it. But we're going to talk about building savings and wealth. And what does that look like? And when we talk to ourselves, or if you're married, talk to a spouse, what does it look like? And some people save to spend, but some people save to invest. And we're going to talk about that. Here's a disclaimer that we intend on keeping everything we do up to date. And sometimes good intentions aren't enough. So we put a disclaimer here to say, hey, you still got to work with a professional. This isn't a solicitation to buy anything. And our goal is to educate 30 million families by 2030. And we look to do about the next year to about 3 million people. And we track them in what we call a counter. And we want people to be a part of our campaign. Now, we don't currently have enough people to talk to enough people. And so we want people to feel comfortable working with us. We want people to feel comfortable saying, hey, I believe in what you guys do. I could do this too. This is simple. And so when we talk about our workshops, maybe what makes us different, it used to be maybe in the 60s and 70s pre-internet, there wasn't enough information. But now we live in a world where maybe there's too much information. And you could get financial advice from TikTok, from WhatsApp, to anything out there, from YouTube, and there's too much information. And so we want to be able to say, hey, in a 6-hour period, what do you need to know? Have a conversation with your family about money. And many people that offer advice are unlicensed. I'm licensed with both securities, life insurance, and I have for over a decade. And we want to be very holistic and take a look at your whole picture of finances. But control your finances is really about controlling your future. Previously to controlling your finances, once you understand your finances, the hardest part is controlling your emotion. Many people understand their finances, but their emotions, still someone takes their money. And most people don't have money because they give it away. And we want to look at, hey, what are your goals? If you don't know what you want, then how do you go after it? One of my goals of the next year and a bit is for me and my wife to fill up our TFSA and to pay off our house and to do a few things and pay off one of our policies. And we look at a financial foundation mindset of we want to put money towards our future. And the financial foundation allows us to have a conversation about what we're doing with our money, and do we need more emergency fund, less emergency fund? What's the wealth formula? How does it help? Then we're going to look at a little bit about time and inflation. So we're going to talk about some of these concepts. And if you're taking notes, we have a workbook. We have a brand new workbook for Canadians to take notes with. If you don't have one, talk to the person that invited you out. And I just want to show you real quick with my camera. So it's a full screen. What it does is it talks about our campaign right away, just like I did. And then it gives you a schedule of what you're going to learn, as well as you can write your own numbers down. Hey, what's your financial strategy look like? And then as we go through, we're going to start taking notes. So you can start saying, hey, what are our goals? Goal setting worksheet. But you don't need this to take notes. If you have a piece of paper, we want to make it easy to take notes and go through this stuff. But whether you have the notebook or not, you still got to take notes. But what was your first concept of money? You know, when did money first become an issue or first become exciting? I remember my parents asked me to help paint a fence, and they would pay me and my brother $40. And I don't know, maybe I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And I remember thinking, I like having that money. I don't know what I did with that money, but this is probably the first time I ever earned money, just painting a fence. And then I remember thinking, hey, maybe I could mow my neighbor's lawn or do different things. Or, you know, when I get a job, I remember getting my first paycheck. It was a couple $100s, but I don't remember what I did with it, you know? And when I looked about the value of money, I learned the value of money. I got married 17 years ago, and then we moved in together. I think we did it in the right order. We got married, then we moved in like the next day, and then we have a 3-year-old. So 15 years later, we started a family. But I remember early in my marriage running out of money, and I made a decision. I said, this is ridiculous. An adult shouldn't run out of money. I shouldn't run out of money. I got to make sure I get my money in order. And I decided to think I need more. I need to take control of my future. And I found the campaign at a similar time. But what are some things you're planning for? You know, when it comes to vacation or travel, is that something you got to save up for? Or kids' education, maybe getting married, is there a budget for that? Or maybe buy a new home? Probably the next purchase I make will be a car. You know, I got an older car, I'd like to upgrade it. And maybe a new home, maybe some retirement funds. Those are, you know, my personal, but you got to know, what are you saving for? And then when it looks like what you want, where most people hate money. You know how I know they hate money? Here's the test. Touch your pockets and see if there's any money in them. Because as soon as most people get money, they get rid of it right away. You know, within 13 days, they get rid of it. So they don't have any money. And so we got to say, hey, what do you need money for? And what are you saving for? And so every goal should have a payment plan. Say, hey, what do I want in less than a year? You know, I'd like to buy a new car. I'd like to buy a Ford Flex. And so I think it's probably cost between 10 and 20,000. And I like to buy cash. And so I got to figure out, hey, how much do I want? Or next 1 to 5 years, what do I want? I should have my TFSA full, pay off my mortgage, take care of those little things. You know, next 5 years, maintain my savings, maintain my lifestyle, maybe buy a new house. But we got to figure out, hey, if I'm tight with my money, there's got to be a reason for the reward. I don't want to just be, you know, some people in my office say I'm cheap, you know, but I'm not cheap when it comes to investing back in my office or my team. But when it comes to me buying lunch or eating lunch, I only buy lunch when I go out with my team. But, you know, at the end of the day, your goal must be paired with action. You know, usually it's a payment plan. Does that make sense? Or paying off debt. I think everyone can get out of debt within 5 years, usually 1 to 5. And so we have a worksheet that can explain, what are you saving for? If you're working with us, instead of asking, what are your goals? I always struggled with that. Hey, what are your goals? It sounds weird, but a better way to ask would be to say, hey, with your current money you're saving, what are you saving for? And then they can tell you, this is what I want. I want this, I want that. I want to get things going, right? And if you know what they're saving for, it's very easy to put a financial plan together. But we're going to look at different formulas in our Saving Your Future book. We have a calculation or a formula that says you need about 10 times your annual income in life insurance to meet your insurance needs in case of a tragedy, and about 20 times your income for retirement. And so we can go through this book and say, hey, here's some of the, if you want to retire, this is what it's going to cost. And whatever strategy you use, the number one enemy is procrastination. Hey, there's a lot of theory out there about the best way to do it, but most theories don't work because they don't cause people to take action right away. But let's say you want $1 million. Okay, we say this is the goal. I want $1 million. And you say, I'm at 25 years old. I could save $200. If you want $1 million, you need to stay out of debt, credit card debt. If you're 25, get out of credit card debt. Because if you're out of credit card debt, you could probably save $285. I think that's true. Now, if you're 35 years old, you got to stay out of car debt. No more car loans. The average car loan is like $500 to $700. And if you could get out of a car loan, you could be a cash millionaire. Now, 45, this is out of renting. Maybe you got to buy a house and pay it off so that you're not, you're saving that $1,600. It's hard to save $1,600 if you're have a $1,600 mortgage payment, right? But I used to think some of these numbers were unrealistic. And so the question about realism is about, you take your phone now to your screen, if you're not on your phone, and take a picture of this QR code. What it's going to do is it's going to let you put in your number. They say, what is your age? When do you want $1 million or $500,000 or $4 million? And then it'll tell you this is what you should save. And then you can make a mental goal where, when I started in this industry, I was in my 23 and they said, hey, you should start a savings account because you're going to tell people to save. So maybe you should save too. So I said, hey, maybe I'll save. And I saved like $35 a month. And then I started saving $85, an extra $50. Then I started saving $200 a month, and then $300 a month, and then $500 a month. And then I paid off some debt and started saving closer to $2,000 a month and started increasing it. Well, once you start saving, I'm in my 30s, but I'm saving as if I'm in my 40s and 50s, because maybe I don't want to wait till I'm 70. So I gotta act like I'm 50. But I think it's very doable because I see so many people of my peers do this, but so many people don't do it too. But you want to look at what you need, and we want to look at, hey, some of the obstacles. Would you rather feel certain about your finances or scramble by asking for donations through crowdfunding, where some of the emergencies happen? How do you think the foundation should be built? So there's 4 industries. We can refer them in slang. We call them the reserve, the ditch, the vault, and smart people. When we look at, hey, how do these work? This is the reserve. Proper protection is for unforeseen or unplannable events. Cancer, pass away, get sick, get hurt, whatever it is. Second thing is, the ditch. If you get too much debt, a lot of your money has to go to pay that back. Or emergency fund. Having a vault of, hey, I got some money available, and lastly, to build your savings, grow your wealth, and put your money with smart people, and maybe you're the smart person, you can manage your own money. But these 4 are basically the 4 financial industries that we say, I look at this and I say, a lot of people need more emergency fund. They need more cash. And if people make a good income, most people spend it all and then a little bit. And we need to talk to them about budgeting. And it's very noble. Or if they have too much debt, hey, if they have no emergency fund for too long, they get into debt. So that's the second piece. Or if something goes wrong and they've never saved any money, we got to have insurance for that stuff. And then maybe they're going to get old and they need investments. And so we can show this and just tell them how good our campaign is. And getting these things in order makes, I think, a big difference for someone's future. For me, it gives me confidence because I can say it's not net worth that is your financial literacy. It's your financial foundation. Because I know lots of people that have a good net worth, no cash, lots of debt, terrible insurance. They don't know. Just like if you buy a big policy, that doesn't always solve the problem. But we still want to get wealthy. Does that make sense? So once someone has a financial foundation, they have a grasp, they get the priorities straight, they just become more stable financially. Then we can look at the math problem of the wealth formula. And the wealth formula is in our both the Saving Your Future book and the workbook. And In the workbook, it's just totally blank. So you just fill it out if you don't have a workbook. The number one thing people don't have is money. They just don't save it. And the second thing is they don't start young enough. And there's very few organizations with a track record like ours that have gotten people to save money. Now, there's lots of theories that, hey, we're going to help people, but they don't actually get people to save money young. And they're going to talk about getting a positive rate of return over time, beating inflation and tax. Some of the things that aren't on here, by the way, are things like investment fees. The wealthier you are, the more you're going to pay investment fees, because nobody says, I didn't get wealthy because fees. No, if you have two things that have, similar performance, the fee matters. But a lot of times people talk about, they don't help people put as much money as they can when they're younger. And now in my 30s, I think 80 might be the new 65. So I might be able to work till I'm 80. We're all pretty healthy. But we're going to look at, this is the wealth. Money doesn't grow on trees. You must work for it. And if you want to build wealth, there's a formula for you to build on. In a financial planning, we have what we call a propensity to save. And what a propensity to save is when you earn money, do you keep any of it? And so we can figure out what your propensity to save is by saying, this is how much money I've kept. This is how much money I've earned in my lifetime. So if you're in your 30s and you earn $50,000 a year, you probably have earned $1 million in your lifetime. And then have you saved 10% of that money, or 5% or 2%? And so people's propensity to save is very low. They just don't save much of their money, or they don't keep. Sometimes keep is a better word than save. When I get paid, do I keep any of my own money? So let's look at, time is money. If I don't save, I got to work forever. And making money is, I want my money to grow for me. But here's the time side. If someone's going to save $300 a month, Mr. Start Early starts when he's 25, puts $300 a month away for 7 years. Then he saves nothing, just lets the compound interest continue to compound. Mr. Wait Longer says, I'm going to wait 7 years. I know you put $25,000 in, but I'm going to wait 7 years. Then how many years do I have to till I catch you? 17 years. So the main difference is 10 years of savings, or an extra $30,000. That when you look at how much you got to put away, there's a feeling that says, I'm going to save more when I make more. And there's a myth out there that if you don't save much money when you make very little money, there's almost no chance you're going to save money when you have a lot of money. That's how it is. If you can't manage 2,000, you'll never manage 5,000. You'll never manage 10,000 or 25,000 or up and up and up, right? But so when you look at the time, starting right away, starting in the next 30 days, and saying, hey, I was out with a client earlier this week and I said, well, why don't we get together and in the next 30 days, get this going, while you can manage your budget. But, and by the way, our next workshop is going to talk about the budgeting, pre-planning your month, knowing what you're going to spend. We're going to look at the rate of return. So the rate of return, or interest, is a percentage of net gain or loss on investment over time. So it's usually calculated annually. So for example, if you're earning $6 on a $100 investment, it's a 6% rate of return. And so the rule of 72 from the Saving Your Future book, and we have it quite a bit, it shows compound interest. 72 is the years for your money to double. 72 divided by 4, your money doubles in 18 years. 72 divided by 6, your money doubles every 6 years. So when you look at 8%, your money doubles every 9 years, a little better. And then at 10%, our money doubles every 7 years. And so when we look at the rule of 72, the better the interest rate, if you double your interest rate, you don't double your result, you compound your result. It's no different than if you live, in my opinion, if you live a good moral life, whatever that means to you, your life gets better rapidly. It just doesn't get better in the first couple of years. But if you live a good life, you make good decisions, long term, it's a lot better. If you make bad decisions and you know what those mean, First couple of years, no big deal, but after a decade or two of bad decisions, it's hard to get out of that ditch. And two things we learned from the Rule 72 that are hard to accept. One is it takes multiple decades. This is a multiple decades problem. It's not an issue of the choices you make today. It's an issue of waiting decades. Most people don't wait decades, so the Rule 72 doesn't apply to them. And the second is avoiding negative returns. In all three of these, 6, 8, and 10, there's no negative returns. And so a negative also compounds. It hurts you a lot more than we think. And so we want to do multiple decades. And we want to take an active approach where sometimes we change our investments. I don't think you buy something today and you never touch it for 30 years, 40 years. And so in our workbook, we got some quizzes. If you put $100,000 into an account, and in 9 years, it guarantees to double to $200,000. What's your rate of return? 8%. 72 divided by 9 is 8. If you ignore paying your balance on your credit card, now we know you can't ignore paying a balance and not get it shut down. So what you do is this: if your balance, if you have a $100 minimum payment, you pay your $100 minimum payment, then you fill in gas in your car. So you're not actually paying your credit card off. You're just rolling your interest, right? Your credit card interest will double in 4 years because you're not actually paying it. You're just putting it on, taking it off, right? And so people can get into debt, and it usually takes about 5 years for it to start hurting them. And then, a 10% rate of return. How much money would you have if you had one more doubling period from 36? Most of the wealth is created in the last 7 years of your working career. And so we want to prepare you emotionally to stay invested in your 60s and 70s so you can get that last doubling period and double your net worth. And so we look at this kind of stuff and we think we have to learn how to invest. Usually it's an emotional issue, not a logical issue, but there is logic to it. And what is inflation? We felt inflation. If you drive a car and you filled up your fuel, sometimes it might be supply and demand, it might be inflation. But regardless what you call it, the cost of living is going up. And also the rate of improvement for humanity is going up too. When I was growing up, I couldn't text my friends, I couldn't video chat my friends, I have cameras in my house now, I can check in from my phone. Life is a lot better now than it was 20 years ago, but it's also more expensive. And so the average cost of living just to buy the same item is going up. And so inflation it's not a religion. It doesn't require you to believe in it. It is the cost of living in the future will be more than today. And so sometimes when we talk about inflation, I've heard people say, well, the dollar is not worth much. You don't need to save it, or savers are losers. And I always think, hey, wait a minute. If money is worth less, having money is worth more, because then, if I struggle now and I sacrifice when I'm young, then when I'm older, I have more money. And so it just depends on what people are planning for. But if you have $100, 5 years from now, it's going to decrease to 86. And in 20 years, it's going to be worth about half as much if inflation stays around 3. And so the cost of lifestyle, if I say I could live on $4,000 a month, $1,000 a week, then when I go to retire, I might need double that. So I got to be planning, hey, in 20 years, if I retire, I might need double. And if I retire in my 70s, I might need triple or quadruple. So the purchasing power of $100, when you look at our workbook, is decreasing. That inflation is real, so you're forced to invest. And I think when you talk about classes, upper class typically lives below their means, but they have bigger means. And then middle class and lower class usually have similar income. You can have a plumber who's lower class, and you can have a plumber who's middle class. The plumber who's middle class spends a decade under his means and saves some money. The plumber who's in lower class has debt. He's working, it's like a modern day slavery, working to pay a bank. But when we look at, based on inflation, how much do you need in 20 years to have the same purchasing power? 181. So you need more money in the future than you do now to maintain the value of money. Money has value, and over time, that value changes. How much money do you need to retire in 20 years? Or how much money for 20 years? Right? And so if you retire at age 70 and you live another 20 years, life could be expensive. And so when you look at the wealth formula, we need to save money early in life, get a good rate of return, so we're understanding risk and return, inflation, and tax. And tax is probably the most misunderstood and misacted on part. What the government has done is in the 80s, they got together with the investment industry and they said, let's create a program that creates more tax for the government. And they promoted it like crazy. And so when you look at 3 categories of tax now, there's 2 categories that fits into. Usually it's employment income or interest earned on fixed income. So any earnings from these accounts, you pay tax that year. Or if you have a job, you pay tax that year. You have no control. Tax later means you defer your tax. So maybe you put it into an RRSP or a pension or a government program, CPP, OAS. You get paid tax later when you're old. Tax advantage generally means you won't pay tax when you withdraw the money from your account. In Canada, there's 3, maybe 4, but 3 main ways we can have tax advantage vehicles. There are paid off principal residence, a paid off life insurance policy, or a claim on a life insurance policy. So if I pass away or get sick, life insurance proceeds or health insurance proceeds are tax-free, and TFSA. The 4th one is a loan. A loan is also tax-free. The problem with a loan is usually you have to pay it back. So unless you structure it where you don't have to pay your loan back, which is a little more complicated, when you pay it back, the payments back are taxable. But we want to look at how they're taxed. So typically a savings account, when you look at this, is taxed now, but most people don't earn much money in their savings account, so they're never taxed. RRSP is taxed later. A mutual fund is a type of investment where it gets taxed when you sell it. Or if you transfer it or you change your funds or rebalance, it gets taxed. But you can register a mutual fund as an RRSP. So we're going to talk more about that in workshop 4 and 5. And then a tax-free savings is tax advantage. A tax-free savings account coupled with a paid-off house are the 2 most powerful tax advantage vehicles in Canada we have, because they're not very complicated. If you pay off a house and sell it, there's no tax. If you fill up your TFSA and you withdraw the money, and there's growth, the growth is not taxed. And so we want to look at tax, how to reduce the impact. So this is just another way to explain the same thing. Tax now. Tax later means you don't pay tax when you're young, but when you're old, you got to pay tax. And so typically I understand when I'm young, I have child tax deductions, business tax deductions. I might not have that when I'm old. In fact, I won't have child tax deductions when I'm old. And then, whether it's health insurance, primary residence, TFSA, life insurance benefit, figuring out how I can do something with my money where there's no tax in the future. And so here's how this works. If I save $100, I get a 4% interest rate. If I pay tax on the interest rate I earned, I'm left with 103. After inflation, my value is still $100. The government has some value, they get paid, but I'm not getting paid. So what this means is I got to get at least 4% on my investments to beat taxes and inflation. If I get less than 4, long term, I'm going to be a loser. And in effect, I lose the financial game. And so how do we expect to win the game if we don't know the rules? One of the rules is you got to beat inflation and tax as a combo. And then one of the cool things about investing is if you're an owner of an investment or you control it, whether it's TFSA or RRSP, you can control how it's invested, and you can look at the long-term track record and say, after 10 or 20 years, if this guy has 3,000 days investing and his track record is not as good as other people, you can change where you're investing your money. And when we look at a simple thing of the financial foundation, there's 2 steps in finance. One is to become wealthy, That's step 2. The first step is to become secure. And so we say we want to build a financial foundation so we have the proper protection in place. Debt management, we're on our way to be out of debt. And we have a workshop on how to do that, how to get good at it. But you got to first start with a desire to, I want to get the right protection. I want the right debt management. I want a good emergency fund. I want investments where they grow. I'm willing to take the risk to get the growth when I'm old to have money. And when we look at, hey, what does it mean for your family when you have enough money to be free of financial worries? And it's one of the things that if you work with World Financial Group and World System Builder, we talk about becoming free. But many times it's not financially free to spend whatever you want. It's free from worries. To say, hey, I'm getting control of my life. And if you're not in control of your life and you're not happy about it, you keep coming around and we'll start talking. You start, hey, I like this stuff. And what does it mean for your family? Knowing you and your children understand how money works. That my son understands how to buy insurance, understands how to use and benefit from debt, or have a cash emergency fund so he can fund opportunities. And then a long-term, have an investment account that you're going to live on, where your first third of my life, I lived with my parents. Second third, I took care of my wife and my kids. But my third, I have to live on my investments. Now, if I don't have any investments, what am I going to live on? That's the question. And so whatever your goals are, long-term, short-term, I think the journey begins with building a financial foundation. And we're going to talk more about that in our next workshop of how to free up cash flow. That one's happening tomorrow, and we call workshop number 2. But how to free up cash flow to say, if you work a job, you should be able to keep some of the money you earn. And if you can't keep it, we have to sacrifice something. We have to make some adjustments. But I think believing in your future that you can put a plan together to become financially independent. And so here's what we're going to do. We want you to make more money. Make more money when you can, while you can. If you have weekends off, evenings off, we can help you make more money, but there's many ways to make more money. I like the way we do it. And we think you should rebalance your budget. Change what you eat. There's really 4 budget things you got to rebalance. Your shelter cost. I don't know what you guys spend on that. Your food cost, your transportation cost, and your leisure cost. So some people overspend in one of them. Transportation, food, shelter, your home, and leisure. I would like to spend most of my money on leisure because I think leisure is fun. But most people spend money on transportation and housing, but very little on food and leisure. I like the food and leisure spending because I enjoy that a lot. And you can make better decisions when you're out of debt. If you can dig yourself out of the ditch once, twice, you can do it a third time. The confidence that comes from being able to get out of debt more than once, you feel good about your future. I can do that over and over. And I want to be my own money manager. I want to choose what I invest in. I want to look at what my options are and whether I'm investing in professional money management, investing in people, in a business. I want to have a clear goal and I want to build a solid financial foundation. And we talk about life of purpose. I don't think if you're worried too much about money, you can't worry about a legacy. And I think a legacy is more than money. A legacy is the values you give to your children. I want my son to see that I'm a winner. I don't want him to think daddy's a loser, so he's going to be the first one to get things going. And when you look at, what is the purpose of your life? We want you to expect to win. If you're exercising, expect to get in better shape. If you're working on your marriage, expect to have a great one. If you got kids, expect them to do great too. If I'm in business, I don't think God meant me to get into business and go bankrupt. I think he wants me to win too. And so the question is always, what are my habits? Do I read before bed or go to social media before bed? Or do I wake up and, talk about, do I have good habits when I'm waking up or coming to the office or whatever I'm doing in my profession? Or do I have a habit of spending money and spending money recklessly? But I don't think financial independence is a dream. In fact, every year that I'm here, it's closer and closer and closer. And those that follow us and follow me, they're going to get there too. But Mr. Liu said, financial education And financial literacy with applied knowledge will serve your future well. Though we started from scratch in our 20s, we're able to achieve our first million saved goal, and we're very proud of our money management discipline. We're excited to achieve our next financial goals, and this time for sure, it won't take that long. Only you can take the steps necessary for your future. There's no Disney knight in shining armor to come save us. I'm the one that comes to save my family. And by the way, if you like what we teach and you feel good about it, we want you to do two things. We want you to invite people here too, and we want you to get rewarded for the work you do promoting financial literacy. We don't expect people to promote financial literacy for free, but we got to go through the government, get some regulations done, get some licensing completed, get on a platform, and some paperwork we got to do. So you get rewarded for anyone you bring in. We track it, but we got different workshops. Tomorrow we have increasing cash flow, then protecting your family, and then growing your assets and controlling the tax, and then lastly making sure your family's taken care of financially if you pass away. But hey, work with the person that you brought out. If someone invited you here, reach out to them and say, hey, I was at the workshop, it was awesome, and tell them what you want. Hey, I want to look at my budget, I want to look at my financial foundation, I want to review my investments or insurance, or can I get out of debt quicker? I want to review what I'm doing, and they'd love to help you. A lot of times they invite you here, but they don't know what to ask for you next. But if you reach out to them and say, this is what I'm looking for, they would appreciate that, and I think it goes a long way. That is our workshop for today. We're almost 40 minutes in. I do have a few minutes if there's a question or two about this material or about our campaign, I can answer it. Other than that, we're going to take off. It's a Tuesday, and I know your time is valuable, and I don't want to use up any more than you offer me.